Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Peter, how's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, we're rolling along here through June. We have a couple big races today, actually. We're recording on a Sunday with the OG Gravel Classic, which is a UCI gravel qualifier.
I love that you led with that one out of all of the races that happened.
Well, what else is happening? There's Broken Arrow, and for running this week has been a big week. And then, of course, we're coming into Western States next week. So I like to spectate that. I'm not necessarily coaching anyone at that, I don't think, this year. What else is going on?
Well, there was the Tour de Suisse Women's, which you can catch our recap on the 5-day stage race over at Queen Stage Women's Cycling Podcast. So we recorded that today. There's also Vuelta y Catalunya Women's, and that was a 3-day stage race. It was U.S. Road Nationals, which Kate Courtney won.
I saw that, and some of the gravel racers were in there as well.
Yeah, Lauren Stevens, who's also a road racer, and Paige Onweller had a fantastic solo effort, which again, we actually dissect that a bit too in the Queen Stage today. So yeah, bigger. Oh, and Lenzerheide Mountain Bike World Cup.
Yep.
So yeah, you were just paralyzed by choice when trying to figure out what the heck to watch today. Oh, and I guess Tour de Suisse Men's also finished today, but whatever. Okay. Sorry, apologies to them. I'm sure it was great.
And I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anyone that we work with. I'm sure I am, and I apologize for that. But yeah, OG, so far the early trickling of results seem mostly pretty good, which is fantastic that we had that in Canada to have some of these higher level UCI level races. But yeah, that's that. And then we also went to...
I was going to say, you've really buried the lead on the premier event of this weekend. The reason for this weekend being one of the crown jewels in, I'd say, North American racing, possibly worldwide racing, was the Ruff Mudder.
That's right. So DW had his first race. This is our small Dachshund wiener dog, if you will, and he participated in this event. And I was worried we were going to be the only people there because it's sort of just local. It's near Stainer, if anyone knows Stainer.
It is the biggest one in North America.
So the actually fantastic event. Sort of our goal for this summer was to sort of stay in our local area here in Collingwood, enjoy the weather, and then support a couple of community events. And not all biking or running per se, but this was actually just something, the Ruff Mudder, which is sort of like an obstacle course race, I guess, or a mud. What was it called? Like
Tough Mudder. Like that's the...
I didn't want to say the brand, but there was a mud run was what they called it. And so this was for dogs though. So there was sort of obstacle course adjacent, dog obstacle course type thing, but there was no rules. My mom was like, well, how did they judge if he couldn't get, and I was like, no one was checking that we didn't lift him up or certainly down.
Which side note, I'm sort of bummed about because I would have preferred that.
But yeah, he did great. There was a lot of swimming, which he loves to swim. So he was going upstream in all these rivers and stuff. And he got over a lot of the obstacles. There was a couple that, again, we had to help him on the way down. He doesn't jump down from stuff, which is not great for wiener dogs. But yeah, really big crowd. And then they did a great job with Expo and sort of like different dog products you could buy, just like any race. And they also had like a beer gardens and foods as well. So it was really, really well run event. So I can see why it draws people from all over.
Yeah, it was very fun and it was super cool. I mean, I was joking before. I was like, it was great to just see all of these different types of dogs out. Like DW was actually not the only dachshund there. I do think he was the only dachshund that did all of like the swimming obstacles because that dachshund was way too clean.
Okay. Well, we don't need to get judgy there. That was a non-competitive event.
That dachshund cheated. I want him DQ'd. I want his medal taken away. DW got his first finisher medal. But it was very cool seeing all the different kinds of dogs that were there, but also the different people that were there. I think sometimes we get very in our heads as serious endurance athletes, and I say that with like kind of like a little like TM at the end of it, where every event has to be so serious. It was kind of fun just being on a start line that was utterly unserious, like more so than any local 5K or anything like that. This was purely a fun thing, and that was actually a really freeing feeling, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. So it was a good way to spend a Saturday, I guess. So we did that.
Yeah. And I think for me, this is just another thing on my list of, I said June was going to be weird sports. So we are now up to, we've got disc golf, we've got boxing. We went to a dinner dance. So I'm going to say dancing. Paddleboarding, which I did get a used paddleboard, so now we can both go out paddleboarding. So we took DW for a paddleboard today. This Ruff Mudder race. I've been back on the bike. I did some mountain biking right before we left for that. Roller skating. I said disc golf already.
I don't know if you did.
Oh, yeah. Disc golf. Yeah, it's been a wild June. Plus, like, still running and doing all that stuff. But it's been really fun just jumping into these very silly, different things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's been quite good. Okay, well, we have a couple listener questions. Did we want to get into those? Maybe we'd do a ad in the middle, maybe?
Yeah, okay, let's talk about the first question. Then we'll drop our little shout out to Payable, the best ever Google Forms add-on. But this one is about pacing, and the question is really, should you walk? So the question is, should you walk your bike if a climb will demand a heart rate greater than 160 for any length of time?
This is, I think, particular to this person. So let's just assume, like, you have a heart rate limit or something you're using.
So you're on like a zone 2 ride, for example.
I don't know. It would probably be more specific to racing, but you should probably test your race limits. So yeah, you come to a big hill. This could be, I think, probably relevant for running, right? Like I know you've sort of like set out that like, you know, some of these races you're going to try and not walk during the whole 100-miler, but if you could measure power output, or if you could measure certainly your heart rate, you would see that like, oh, like there at some point running up a slope requires more watts or more effort or more heart rate. And the thing is, it might not be sustainable. And in your case, when you did your 100-milers that are lapped courses, it would be like, well, you do it the first time, but are you doing it the second, third to eighth times?
Well, it depends on how much mud has built up on the course. That's for sure. Yes. And I will say, like, it's not just and this is the same with the bike, and I'm sure we'll get into this momentarily, it's not just the effort to get up the hill and slowing to a walk for the hill. I think what people don't take into account is the effort that it then takes to restart the run from the walk. And on the bike, that's very obvious, right? You've had to stop and actively get off of your bike, and then you have to get back on and start pedaling again. Mm-hmm. Running, there is like more nuance than just walk or run, because if you start walking, it is significantly harder to get that run going again and get back up to speed compared to even if you are running but basically at a walking pace.
Right. Okay. I mean, but like biking would be much harder. Like the transition is like much bigger.
Yeah,
but
that's what I said.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. And so that's sort of a bit of a mindset. I think that pacing strategy works in running if you are fit enough to absorb it. And what you're sort of doing is surging. And so this might be like a match potentially, or it might be just dipping into, say, zone 3. But what we want to be careful is that it's not becoming like a zone 4 or 5 where you're really going, you could say anaerobic or burning a match, or just too hard that you're not going to be able to recover. And indeed, after a few of those, you might start fading, especially if we're talking about an all-day event, a 100K mountain bike race, a 100-miler of any type, and then anything certainly longer. You're going to want to just sort of pace out your efforts. And a lot of people, I think we have feedback at the end of this episode about Molly's training by feeling, that I think was a bit misinterpreted. So I thought we'd talk about the listener mailbag. We also like to get feedback and comments and questions following up. But you're very good at feeling, oh, this is going to be too hard. This is like, for a 100-miler pace, this will be too much, right? And so that would be implicit in that, like when you go by feeling. So I guess the idea would be that like for some people doing big events, on their bicycle, at some point you may need to walk if you run out of gears. And I think this is pretty specific to gravel or mountain biking. It could happen in road, but like it's rare in road that you're going to run into such gradients that you couldn't pedal it, especially now with modern gears are much more reasonable that they're putting on bikes. A lot of bikes have big cassettes and compact cranks. What I do see is that people struggle with standing climbing, which you don't have to be maxed out to do, but like if you're not balanced and efficient with it, it's very, very hard. But most road pitches, like I'm thinking about like the ones in California, like going up in San Francisco or something where it's just like a wall, you should be able to sort of stand and almost walk your way up the bike on that. So that's definitely a skill to refine alongside your gear choice, your mechanical preparation or fitness for the race. But when do you walk? The idea would be like when that effort becomes too much that it's going to affect the average speed or the finish time for the rest of the race. And that's a little nebulous.
Yeah. So do we maybe have like an example? I know Leadville is a pretty big one for this because there are a lot of long sustained climbs and you often do end up in a conga line of riders who are now walking.
And people freak out a lot of times because you end up walking up the first climb. It's called St. Kevin's or St. Kevin's. And you go up it and there's all this Congo line of people because you use your start spot. You're not with the pros like you should be. And you end up walking or going slower than you think you might need to go 10 miles into a 100-mile day. And you're looking at your watch and you're saying, oh, I'm never going to finish at this pace because we're walking. And it's meanwhile, you're going to get around people at some point and then you're going to speed up. But then those same people often end up having to like choose to walk or forced to walk, I should say, up at 75 miles. There's this power line climb, very, very steep, very, very hard to clean, even like if you're fresh for most people. And so you end up walking there. And that's, again, okay, but those would be two situations where you haven't, like, even though you were walking early, it actually turns into a good pacing strategy because you want to expend that energy over the course of the race. But then you also often get to that 75 miles and a lot of people do end up walking there. And that could be because they've overextended themselves, or it's just, again, like that effort becomes too much and they're forced off their bike. Now, hopefully that made sense. That was a little disjoint, but, some people might find they can climb it, or they could find the opposite, that they don't make it up, but they thought they could make it up, right? And it's like, oh, I just ran out of gas at that point. And people will quit at that point in the race too, right? So we are sort of trying to taper it out. So sometimes walking up those early climbs, or the other place would be at the turnaround at the highest altitude on Leadville. A lot of people end up walking there and getting really frustrated. But again, it's probably like a good pacing strategy because it doesn't make you max out to get up those pitches.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing with that is sort of, not stressing out that you're walking. Like, don't see that as a problem in a race. Point number one. And then point number two, I think we've mentioned this before, but use walking as an opportunity, especially on the bike where it is kind of difficult, especially mountain biking. It's difficult to maybe get your food out, to get your water bottle out, to actually take like a few good sips of water, especially if you are getting off the bike because your heart rate is hitting that point. Like, probably it's been a kind of hectic day, would be my guess in a lot of cases. So use the walk as the chance to like see it as a positive almost, right? This is a good chance to drink half of your water bottle, have a snack, like actually get that fuel in, do sort of that body check of like, okay, do I need to take off my arm warmers, add my arm warmers? Like how is everything feeling? Can I stretch out my back while I'm doing this? Really see it as an opportunity rather than oh crap, I have to walk.
And I think that's true. There's a bunch of stuff that someone might not be able to do while they're riding, so that might be a chance to do that. We also don't want to make this into like a 5-minute pity party where you stand on the side of the trail because you had to walk.
Exactly.
So we do want quick feet, and I like to grab the top tube when we're running with our bike or walking with our bike and help the bike up and over routes. We don't want to just get into that sort of like defeated, slumped over the handlebars, pushing the bike up. And then again, in our training, if we do anticipate that this is something we'll have to do, this is where something like having our mounts and our dismounts, a technical skill or a technical fitness element that we could have in place that would really make the dismount and the mount and the carrying or pushing of the bike very efficient and familiar and not a big deal that's going to really disrupt the day. And as Molly says, it's definitely something that maybe will let us use that as a positive. Maybe different muscles are being used. We're stretching our backs and our hips. And so rather than being on our bike the entire day, maybe it gives us that little chance to stretch and like stand upright, let the leg go behind us a little bit, stretch our arms while we're pushing the bike a bit. So there's a lot of even movement-wise things, but definitely if this is the first time you've ever mounted and dismounted a bike, at any sort of speed and without getting stopped for 5 minutes because you got stopped, then these are things to have in place before an event like that.
Yeah, definitely. If you know that walking is going to be on the agenda, which I think looking at a course profile, you can generally figure that out. Like, am I probably going to need to walk? Yes, no.
Well, and I mean, dismounting and mounting is probably like essential all the time, because it's rare that I don't end up off my bike in a race, whether I screw up and crash, or you're coming in and out of the aid station, or like the last gravel race I did, like someone asked after this, like, oh, was everyone at the front riding that section? I was like, no, we ran for like so far. It was a river crossing that was really steep on both sides and covered in mud. Like, it would make no sense to try and ride it. Like, I don't even know if you could. Like, maybe you could sort of trials your way out of it. But I think that's why people get frustrated, is they assume. But no, the fast riders would just cyclocross dismount and run with their bike. Maybe they'd carry it and help lift it over some of the mud or the bumps or something. But no, like a lot of times that's the thing that gets missed, is like running can actually be much faster in a lot of cases, especially once we get into these, you know, you have a 28 chain ring with a 52 pie plate, big, massive cassette on the back.
But what if you have 32-inch wheels?
Yeah, and then you have 32-inch wheels. I don't know. I think that makes it harder. I don't think that makes it easier. But that would be the thing, is that like at some point you're going at walking speed. If your gear lets you pedal and you're going, 5 kilometers an hour, that's sort of like walking speed. So you may as well just hop off. And I always thought of it as like a chance where I didn't have to think very much. Whereas when you're really going slow, especially in picking your way up a climb, you have to do a lot of technical line picking, traction finding. So yeah, sometimes it's just like a nice relief to just run up something.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that answers the question. I guess the other thing would be like the heart rate, sort of like at some point you might have a cap on what you want to push or where you want to spend those matches. And a lot of times we use that 85% of max heart rate, but it is not perfect. You can certainly refine that a bit.
Well, certainly if you're like 10 feet from the top of a climb and your thing beeps at you, get to the top of the climb.
Well, and if you have it set up to beep, then you've obviously like done something. That's like a very rare thing. But yeah, at some point, like you can absorb little sprints. But again, if you're doing little sprints over the course of 50 Ks of mountain bike riding, and then you have another 50 Ks of mountain bike riding, this could be a harder thing to absorb, right? If it's a 2-hour race, you can absorb higher and higher. But at the same thing, if you just started sprinting as viciously as you could, up a climb, like we've all seen this person at the local race, they win up to the first climb, but then do you ever see them again? No.
Right.
So it's similar with walking. It's just we're talking about a situation where you're really trying to pace it out, or the climb, the effort is so steep or so intense that it's not like, it's just a couple zones down, if you will.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, like, if you can see the top of the climb and it's right there, it's going to be probably more work and spike to get off the bike and then have to get back on and get going again.
I guess unless it was like a really steep sandy hill or something. There was one of these at the gravel race too, actually, in another section I hopped off. And I was sort of trucking along and fighting for traction in sand, but then you could see it pitched up for, I don't know what it would be, 50 meters. And so I said I could probably mash this as hard as I could and make it up and fight for traction. Or I could hop off and just not think about it and not spend a bunch of matches doing it and then hop back on at the top. Because the danger with that too is that if I had, the chances of me making it were probably 30%, even if I threw all the watts I had at it. So the thing is, if you don't choose to get off and do a real smooth dismount, now you're awkward usually. Like you get one foot off, you have to try and get off over your bike. Whereas if you can dismount smoothly and just pop the bike forward, sort of like in cyclocross, now we're not stopped and it's very efficient, right? So that's sometimes we're choosing, you're giving up a little bit, like you're quitting, but you're doing it in an intelligent way where you're sort of gambling, right? 30% chance, a ton of watts. I'm just going to hop off here for a second. Again, stretch, up. And I know the two young guys behind me, they had caught me at the bottom of this section and then they just disappeared. But I bet you they both tried to smash their way up it and then screwed up.
For sure.
So then it's just like, okay, well, there's another 10 seconds I took on them back, right?
Absolutely. Okay, before we get into our next question, quick thank you to our friends over at Payable. So these are very good friends of ours. So they are making a legitimate product, not some weird AI hack job. This is basically, if you're new to the podcast, the easiest way, the only way to take payments with a Google form. You use the Payable Add-On, and within, 5-10 minutes, you are set up and able to take payments for jerseys, event registration, Girl Scout cookies, donations for the food bank or animal shelter, or any number of things.
Well, and I just made one actually for women's gravel clinic that we're doing in July here in Collingwood. So if anyone's curious about that, they can message out for the link. But yeah, I just used Payable, and it said, what's your name? What's your experience with gravel? What do you want to get out of the clinic? And here's the price, and away you go.
So super simple, and you can find all of our favorite templates at payableapps.com/athlete. And the nice thing is there's no subscription, no hidden costs. It's super simple. They only make money if you do. So definitely check it out if you're trying to figure out a way to take payments. Okay, next question, recovery as we age. Dun, dun, dun. So this question is, the person is noticing that this year they're riding longer than they used to in their 30s, but need way more recovery between hard efforts, like 2 full days instead of 1. Is this just normal masters aging thing, or is it a sign that I'm not managing my training load well? I don't always feel, quote, tired in the moment, like during the workout, but it creeps up on me a couple days later, wondering if there's a smarter way to structure the week so I'm not guessing every time. Ooh, great question and so many answers. So let's just caveat this with a big it depends.
Sure. And I mean, I guess just for reminding people, like I'm in my 40s now, but I do work with like our average.
Just a reminder, I'm not.
Our average age of athletes, I think, is now, what was it? Was it 48? I think it was 48.
I think so.
And the median is around there too. And that's something we track. We're pretty proud of. You know, we have 3 people now in their 70s. We have a bunch in their 60s, obviously a bunch in their 50s, a couple late 40s. And then there's those ones down in the 15s and the 16 and the 18, those pull down our average a little bit. So I do have some understanding. I just wanted to preface that we do work with these people. So we do see a lot of this, like what is the recovery capacity, right, of someone in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, right? And there's some common themes. Like I think what people mess up, and I see this I have a couple friends who are in their 30s, and I always say like, you're in your 30s. Like this shouldn't be really like happening. And a lot of it is like they just smash, and then like they don't ever do endurance. They're not doing strength. They're not like, and it's just weird like interval stuff for no reason that's way too intense. And it's just like, okay, well, like we're just not training, right? So if you're not following a plan that has like a hard day and then an easy day and then maybe a rest day, like that's true for everyone. Like I don't think we need to be in like a sadness that we're getting older and our recovery capacity is lower necessarily. Like that is true. It does decrease. You do need more recovery. But a lot of times what I see when this question comes up is that it's actually just like the old way, like what you think training is probably would have worked. It's just people aren't doing it. They're doing back-to-back group rides or like a group ride and then interval ride. And that just isn't a thing that you really should do generally. Like sometimes you can get away with that, but that's just not a thing that like someone in their 30s or 40s even would get away with.
For sure. And then, I mean, there is life. Like, I don't know this person's exact age or life situation and stuff, but out of your 30s, I think like late 30s, 40s, 50s, like these are hectic times, right? Between work and family, whether it's caring for aging parents or dealing with kid stuff, there's just a lot going on. And I think it's also completely understandable that, you know what, you're a little tired. Like, I'm a little tired.
Yeah. Yeah, and so there's all of that. We know that the mental load is there, but there's also fatigue. If you're carrying hockey bags and you're going to all this stuff and driving, and like there's mental load, there's also physical load. There's, of course, how do we fuel ourselves with that, which isn't a criticism, but like a lot of people, I have a couple really fast masters who are struggling, you know, because as life gets busy and they're away helping people all day, doing their work and everything else, but then they forget about fueling. And so it's like, well, you can continue doing it that way, or is there a way we can try and get a couple Cliff Bars in your pocket and you know, some leftovers in your Tupperware, but this stuff all takes mental energy and time to prep. So I understand that, but that is certainly a factor. Is like, are you fueling for this to go the way you want it to, or do you need those recovery days? Maybe that is a solution, is that you have to take 2 recovery days between the days you ride because they're intense, and then you don't have time to recover and fuel and sleep and everything else.
Or the easy days need to be easier. I think this is probably a really common one, right? You do the group ride on the easy day thinking it's going to be a casual spin, but it ends up being town line
Always.
sprint,
Yeah.
town line sprint, town line sprint. And I'll even say we've been helping out coaching a kids program here in town. And the first night was great. I was with like the 8-year-olds and super chill, super easy. The last week though, they put me with like the 12-year-old, 11 to 13-year-old girls who are
Every time I saw you, you were climbing up a steep double track climb.
who are all really good mountain bikers. I was dying, and that was my rest day. So my rest day still had an hour hard ride in it,
Right.
kind of accidentally. So I would also do a bit of a training plan audit. Like, are you actually doing easy days easy? And if you do have, it is that, your high intensity, and then you have a longer endurance ride, maybe we do need to shorten the endurance ride down to what actually is manageable, and then have the off day.
Yep.
And we've talked about this especially for masters athletes, switching out of the weekly training schedule and into more of that like high, low, off, where it's actually almost like a 3-day microcycle instead of a 7-day one.
Mm-hmm.
Like that might actually be better. Because I think taking 2 days off after a hard workout, not a race, not like the hardest thing you've ever done, just your workout for the week. If you need 2 days off of that, I think we need to figure out what's going on.
Right. Yeah. The 2 days off makes me nervous. Now, sometimes people call endurance days like their days off, which is sort of a.
Well, that was kind of what I was going to question. Is like, are we actually off the bike entirely?
I do see that with some of these 60s, it seems like there's this like 2-day, and I think it's partially just like life is busy and grandkids start coming into the thing, and there's just other stuff going on, which is great, and that's completely okay. But there is this like consistency element where like we probably want, especially as we get older, it sounds almost counterintuitive, but like keeping the body moving is actually like a big thing. So
motion is lotion.
So
right?
we will take rest days. I do think that that's still important, but like there might very likely, like there's certainly walking on rest days, but there might also be like some Pilates or like flexibility, mobility, yoga, whatever there other things on that, like we'll call that the true rest day, the what would be Monday for a lot of people. And then, yeah, I do like that 3-day cycle, probably just because it's 3 instead of like a 7, or Joe Friel talks sometimes about the 10-day, like you're doing the same week, but it's just taking you longer. I always found like that was too complicated for my brain. So I do like that model of we sort of do like a higher intensity, and then we do our like what you might call zone 2 or endurance training, just steady training, which is what a lot of people do like. Usually it's the interval workouts that are harder to convince everyone to do because you are tired and you've been maybe doing this for a long time, but those are valuable. We know that the high intensity and the strength training is very valuable as we get older. And then the endurance though is important that we keep that up. And I do think it's important that it's done in a steady way and it's not a max way, or there isn't like little sneaky Stravas, or as you say, keeping up with a group. And so this is where sometimes you'll see people starting to use e-bikes to keep up because maybe some of their friends are now 20 years younger. It's funny how that happens. If you stay fit and stuff, your friends keep getting younger and younger, is often the way. And so we can use tools like that. Maybe we ride our road bike while our spouse or our really fit 40-year-old friend, maybe they're riding their mountain bike and we go on a gravel ride together or something like that. I don't know if that always makes sense, but maybe it's like a low-key gravel way and you can actually ride like a really fast road bike or something. If not an e-bike. So there's like those solutions where we try and get that endurance in, because the endurance, the aerobic capacity, that is what lets us recover better and is what like ultimately drives a lot of the adaptations that would let you go fast or race or keep up or whatever the goal is. But that's often what's missing. Really just, again, it comes back to like, I think these are the same problems every athlete has. My 30-year-old friends that I'm always picking on, it's all intensity and never just like, we could say true zone 2 or like, an endurance ride, right? Like a talk test, like just steady on the pedals, but not drilling it, right? And it does take a lot of discipline.
For sure, yeah. And I think what the person didn't mention is anything about failing workouts. So to me that, because I was going to say like one of the other things we talk about for masters athletes is sometimes you would scale down the intervals. Like instead of doing 5 sets, you do 4 sets,
sure.
That kind of thing. But it sounds like this person's actually performing in the workout. It's just they're feeling sort of low afterwards.
I like that thought though. Yeah, it could certainly, I see that a lot too, where it's like, this could like 5x3 is a good workout, but you're doing 7x3. And again, across all age groups, I see this where they saw on the internet, someone did something, some hero workout. And it's like, no, like it doesn't always have to be so much.
Yeah, hero workouts actually are really good. I would say for this person, probably try to avoid the hero workout, right? Like, I think maybe it is that they're pushing every workout just that little bit too hard. And often we're saying the opposite, right? Like, often we're saying, like, no, you do need to kind of grit it out and like tough your way through these workouts. But there's definitely the kind of person that pushes that little bit too hard during it because they don't want to cut it down, or like go to the bottom. Actually, this would be my challenge to them: go to the bottom of the range for your next couple weeks worth of workouts. So if you're supposed to be at, say 300 to 320 watts for your 2 minutes or whatever, stay at the 300. Like, make an effort to stay at the lowest part of that.
Yeah, and it's the classic, like, leave one rep in the thing. But yeah, you could use the lower range. And then the nice thing, like the reasonable is repeatable is a great Dan John Stain. And it's like the thing, if it's reasonable, you can do it again. And we can do it again. If we did 2 interval sets in the week and you're a person that does the same intervals, or you want to try that, do it Wednesday and you do it Saturday. Can you do it? Because if not, it was too hard or too many. And more common is that like once a week you would do your hill intervals. And again, can you do the same set? Like, don't even change it. Like, and that's sometimes a good experience. Like 5x3, just do the same. Can you match it even next week? And because it's often challenging to do the same thing twice, right? You sometimes like has more fatigue as you get into a block or whatever. But you could also try and just like bump it up a little. But the mistake is to, really empty the tank on the last one every time. Sometimes that's a good thing to do, but not a lot of the year. And really that's like another Dan John saying is like this idea of like bus bench versus park bench workouts. And a lot of the year, especially if we don't have a big race on the calendar, it's about the park bench. You show up every day and you just like, there are 2 benches that you sit on. And his analogy was that like the park bench, you just enjoy it. You just go, you look around, you put in your time on the bench, you go home. And then the bus bench was like, you're really concerned. You got to be there on time. You got to know the times. You got to know when the bus is coming. You got to be on the bus. And that's like, as we're getting into that peaking and specific period for the race. But a lot of people don't have if you don't have a race coming up, you don't have to be so intent and so like really, really like to the minute on these things. It's sort of like you go to the hill, you go up it 4 times, you come back home. And that's pretty good.
Love it. And we should add that Peter not only makes training plans and does coaching for masters, we also do phone consults. So if anyone has an issue like this and they want to kind of talk through what their current training load looks like, we will include a link to in the show notes so you can check that out.
Yeah. And I guess there's the fueling. Sometimes we underfuel, we're trying to lose weight or something. So that would be something to check in within RD as well. And then strength training is important. Sometimes that can be aggravating some of this recovery as well. So sometimes it's, again, the same concept we talked about with interval workouts. So that would be, but sometimes we're not doing strength training, and that might be something to add in if we're maybe experiencing like some muscle loss. That could be certainly part of things as well. But usually the most common is just like the arrangement of the week and how hard, like we're doing one weekend workout, we're a weekend warrior or whatever. So yeah, common problem.
Perfect. Okay. Do you want me to read this listener feedback or?
Your choice. Do you want to like just put it out there and then we can use it as because I thought it was sort of a question, like sort of building on that last question.
Sure. And also, side note, like, we love feedback. Please hit us up anytime. Send all negative feedback directly to Peter, not me, because I don't read those comments. But we love the positive feedback and appreciate it so much. Also, a rating and review would be pretty sweet as well. Okay, so this one, this person was laughing listening to our podcast because I was talking about using no metrics when I'm doing my run. He says his wife is sort of the same. She actually switched to a Garmin from an Apple Watch just because of the battery life, which I completely understand. Side note, if you're looking for another watch, Garmin's are great. Coros for battery life, you cannot beat it, and the price point is fantastic. No shade to Garmin, also fantastic. So anyway, during this guy's wife's runs, she goes off a feel without much regard for her heart rate. He says, I probably overly pay attention to data and don't pay enough attention to perceived effort, but I always want to try and get her to use data more. So he says he's made it a point to let her sort that out herself and not inject myself into her workouts, to which I reply, well done, sir. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
That is a very smart man right there.
So I think that's why I was trying to, this is why Molly's had her own coach for her running endeavors. I thought the person maybe thought that like you just go and like run on feels, and I just wanted to like emphasize that like you can follow like intervals by feeling is different than like just running like
just vibes based training.
Yeah, like you run out the door and you do like you pretended like you had a plan. Maybe you're following a Garmin plan off your watch, but you sort of don't do it and just run. And this isn't picking on anyone's spouse or anything like this. But I just wanted to sort of like talk through like how you would like when you go out and you're going to do 5 by 3 minutes on your feet, you're running. Like what do you do? Like you have like your watch. Do you press like anything?
Okay, so I don't press anything.
Okay.
If it's a complicated one where it's going to be like 30 seconds, anything that's going to be like hard to do the math in my head, I actually just use a free app called Interval Timer on my phone, and I have the workout like built into that, and it just dings at me when I'm supposed to start going hard.
Okay.
And depending on the duration, there's like a different type of hard, right? There's like hard like your 5K, hard like a 10K, full sprint for kind of more of a fartlek sort of situation where you're just going for like, or like strides where you're going 30 seconds. There's like hour-long pace for some of the longer intervals. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I use Interval Timer, and that's how I do it because I find the lap button to be kind of annoying. For a simpler one, if it's just like 2 minutes on, 1 minute off kind of thing, I don't even bother with that. I just keep an eye on my watch.
Okay. You know that pains me a lot. But
I know it pains you a lot. I'm sorry. Running, it's a little easier because I generally am pretty good at gauging 2 minutes and like can be pretty close.
Okay. So a lot of cyclists though now are either using like a workout download that's going to ding in the way that Molly's thing, but I actually sometimes I'll even use that like an interval timer type thing phone app because it does have like the nice like boxing rounds on it.
I love the boxing round thing. It's great.
Especially for running, I'll use it when I'm doing 30-30s. Yeah, because it's just like some of the I don't even want to figure out what my watch like they're so small and I can't be bothered. So yeah, that's like a great and the idea is that like you can tell that you're running vigorously and then you run easily. And then when you're doing your runs, like we've talked about, like it's sort of obvious by feeling perhaps because you are running. And so to our question about like walking and hiking, you can sort of say like, oh, well, I started the run sprinting and then like I had to walk the last 10 miles because I was very, very tired or something like that. Or you're really dragging, right? And so that would be where like the feeling comes into it. But you go into the day with an intention. This is either a 14-mile endurance run or you have like an hour, it might take you an hour and a half to run. Maybe there's a bit of total distance for the run, but then within that, you're going to have a specific interval set that you're going to complete, quote unquote, by feeling. But, you know, the idea is that you're going to complete the interval set.
Yes, exactly. So run by feel, but follow the plan is probably the simplest way of putting that.
Yeah. And I mean, you could run on vibes too, I guess, if you just want to go out and run.
You can totally run on vibes.
That's probably the majority of runners do that, I guess. But you could fall then into the previous question where you end up not recovering for your next run. And then that's where we have to be a little more precise with things as your volume comes up, your intensity comes up, your goals increase.
And I'm actually unsure. I think in this question, he might actually be saying that she uses a training plan, but just uses feel without regard, like doesn't look at her heart rate. So it's sort of like very much the same as May.
Okay, it could be. Yeah.
So either way, thank you so much for writing into us. We always appreciate it. All right. Do you think we should wrap up there?
Yeah, let's do that. That's 3 sort of questions, I guess.
Okay. Dinner time for us. All right. Happy training. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.